So the release of Intel's new 14th generation CPUs, motherboard manufacturers have been refreshing their Z790 motherboards. So today I'm giving you a first look at ASRock's new Phantom Gaming Z790 Riptide Wi-Fi. So let's go ahead and get it unboxed and see what's new. So this is everything that comes in the box with our motherboard. So we've got our user manual, we've got two SATA data cables, one is a right angle connector, one is a straight connector. We've got a 3:1 ARGB splitter cable. We've got the antenna for our Wi-Fi 7. We've got a thermistor cable, and we've got a Phantom Gaming badge and keycap. Taking a closer look at the motherboard working along the bottom from left to right. First of all, we've got our HD audio connector, and then we've got our clear CMOS and temperature sensor headers. Next to that, we've got a system fan header followed by our Thunderbolt add-in card header. We've then got two RGB connectors. The first is a 12-volt 4-pin connector, and then we've got a 3-pin 5-volt connector. In the middle of the motherboard, we've got two USB 2.0 headers, followed by another system fan header and two SATA ports. Next to that, we've got our Power LED and speaker header, and at the bottom right-hand side of the motherboard, we've got our system panel header where you're going to plug in your front panel connectors. Just above that, we've got our trusted platform module header. Working up the right-hand side of the motherboard, first of all, we've got 6 SATA connectors, giving us a total of 8 on the motherboard. We've then got a USB 3.2 Gen 1 header, followed by another system fan header. Just above that, we've got our USB 3.2 Gen 2x2 front panel Type-C connector, which will support speeds up to 20 gigabits per second. We've then got our 24-pin power connector, followed by our postcode status LEDs, which will be useful if you have to troubleshoot the motherboard. And then finally at the top right of the motherboard, we've got another system fan header. Working along the top of the motherboard from right to left, first of all, we've got two ARGB headers, giving us a total of 3 of these on the motherboard. Then we've got our two CPU fan headers, and then at the top left of the motherboard, we've got our two 8-pin EPS power connectors to provide additional power to your CPU. Our fifth and final system fan header is just above the top M.2 slot. The motherboard features a 16+1+1 power phase design, and we've got beefy heatsinks over the VRM. In the middle of the motherboard, we've got our LGA 1700 socket with standard mounting holes, and the motherboard is compatible with Intel's 12th, 13th and now 14th generation CPUs. We've got 4 DDR5 slots, and the motherboard will accommodate up to a maximum of 192 gigabytes of dual channel memory at up to 7800 megatransfers per second overclocked. The motherboard has 2x16 size PCIe slots, and it's good to see we've got steel armor on the top slot. Our top x16 size slot is a Gen 5 slot, and it will run in x16 mode, provided you haven't installed an M.2 drive in the top M.2 slot. If you have installed an M.2 drive here, the PCIe slot will downgrade to x8 mode. The lower x16 size slot is a Gen 4 slot, and it will run in x4 mode with the CPU lanes coming from the chipset. And at the bottom of the motherboard, we've got a PCIe 3.0x1 slot with the PCIe lanes coming from the chipset. The motherboard has 5 M.2 slots, and you can see we've got a really beefy heatsink over the top slot, marking it out as our Gen 5 slot. Installing an M.2 drive in the top slot is going to be completely toolless. We've got a button on the right hand side of the heatsink which you need to push towards the middle of the motherboard. You're then able to lift the right side of the heatsink up and lift it away. It's good to see that ASRock are now using clips to secure the M.2 drives in the socket rather than screws. And then to secure the heatsink down at the end, it's just a simple matter of sliding it into place at the left hand side and pushing it down, and it will lock into place. I'll go ahead and remove all the heatsinks to give you a closer look at the M.2 slots. So as I've mentioned, the top slot is a Gen 5x4 slot, whereas all the other slots are Gen 4x4 slots. The PCIe lanes for our top 2 slots come from the CPU, while the PCIe lanes for the bottom 3 slots come from the chipset. You can see we've also got an M.2 key slot for our Wi-Fi and Bluetooth module, and this is already installed for you. So out of the box, the motherboard comes with Wi-Fi 7 and Bluetooth 5.4, although in the future, as this is upgraded, it's a simple matter of just changing out this little card should you wish to upgrade your Wi-Fi and your Bluetooth. On the rear of the motherboard, we've got an embedded DisplayPort 1.4. Taking a look at our rear I/O, it's good to see the motherboard features ASRock's flexible integrated I/O shield. Taking a look at the ports, first of all we've got the antenna connectors for our Wi-Fi 7 and Bluetooth 5.4. We've got a HDMI 2.1 and a DisplayPort 1.4 port. We've then got 6 USB Type-A ports. The top 2 are USB 2.0 ports, the middle 2 are USB 3.2 Gen 1 ports, and the bottom 2 are USB 3.2 Gen 2 ports. We've then got a USB 3.2 Gen 1 Type-C port. We've then got another 2 USB 3.2 Gen 1 Type-A ports. These are your Lightning gaming ports and are designed to have your keyboard and mouse plugged into them for reduced latency. Beside these we've got a 2.5 gigabit Ethernet port. And at the bottom of the motherboard we've got our audio connectors, and the motherboard does support 7.1 HD surround sound and the HEMIC audio. So I think ASRock have done a great job in refreshing the Z790 Riptide motherboard. The big things I like about it, I think the colour theme of this one is more neutral compared to the blue and black theme they'd gone with in the older version of the motherboard. It worked well in certain builds, but I think this colour scheme should work well in most builds. In terms of other upgrades on the motherboard, you can see the extra heat sinks we've got in the middle for the M.2 drives. It's great now that we've got a toolless installation of the top heatsink, and also all the drives are installed toolessly now rather than having to use screws. So ASRock have added Wi-Fi to the name of the motherboard, and they have included the Wi-Fi 7 and Bluetooth 5.4 module. So this is going to be really useful having this included. You've also got support for 14th generation CPUs out of the box, where this older motherboard would require a BIOS update. And with that, we've got improved speed and capacity of the memory as well. So some really nice improvements to the motherboard. In terms of pricing, I don't have any details on this just yet, but what I will do once they're available is put links to the motherboard in the video description, so you'll be able to click on the links and find out how much it's going to cost. And I'm really looking forward to getting this in a build on the channel fairly soon. So thanks to ASRock for sending it out. If you have enjoyed this video, please remember to give it a thumbs up. And if you're not currently subscribed to the channel, please hit the subscribe button as well. Thanks for watching.